Ladies and gentlemen, this will be short and sweet. To my super chat, thank you, Eric H526, Luke St. Martin, the two best moderators in all of YouTube. President Trump holds the advantage in swing states. It won't be Biden, it'll be Hillary Clinton. I will have made the biggest political call of all time. Just like in 2015, you can look below. NPR quoted me. I said in 2015, Clinton would lose swing states. Was unelectable. 538 said Trump wouldn't even be GOP nominee. Now, if you look, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at what motivates a person to vote, you don't need statistics. You don't need polls from CNN and MSNBC. You don't need polls from CNN or the Washington Post or Quinnipiac or Monmouth University to explain to you. You don't need polls from CNN to explain to you what people vote on, what their most important, the most important topic on their minds on election day. It's always the economy. It's the economy, stupid. That's a phrase that's a phrase that helped Bill Clinton. Oh, I remember that so well. It's the economy, stupid. Here. It's the economy. That was a phrase that James Carville, not a fan of Trump, coined in 1992. People vote with their pocketbook, by and large. People on the left and the right. People aren't going to vote for Democrats in swing states. After you had a pandemic where governors, primarily in Democratic-run states, well, 5 Democratic states account, 4 to 5 account for over half of the lives lost. It was 3 states for a long time. Then it was 3 to 5 states account for over half of the lives lost. I think about 4 states account for roughly half of all the lives lost because of the pandemic. And then they try to make it into a red state issue. No, it's a blue state issue. Go to the New York Times, look at the cases and all the lives lost. New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. 5 states out of 50 states, out of 320 million Americans. 5 blue Democratic-run states, Democratic Party machines, account for over half of all the people who've lost their lives because of the pandemic. That's a fact. Go to the New York Times. You don't need an app, an Iowa app that cheated Bernie Sanders yet again in 2020. That takes 3 days to find out how many people voted in different alignments and all. It's all nonsense. Hillary Clinton's going to be the nominee. I will have made the biggest political call of all time. They're not going with Biden. Luke St. Martin, hello. Eric H526, hello. But people are going to vote, and if you look at swing states like Minnesota, Minneapolis, there was about like $25 million in property damage in Minneapolis. There's about $1.4 billion in property loss around the country. We have 30 plus million people unemployed. Okay, nobody cares what former Bush-era Republicans say about anything. Trump supporters don't. Republicans don't. And Democrats Democrats deceive themselves. They think that Trump retweeting a tweet that he obviously didn't vet or check out or listen to, the original tweet, most likely, almost certainly, you couldn't hear what was said. Because I haven't seen the original tweet, but the man who said it in a sarcastic tone. So that's number, and then you have the issue of the Democrat, the older Democrat, yelling at the top of his lungs before he even sees any, before he says anything racist. He calls them, bigoted people. Initially, off the bat, of course, there's no condemnation there because that's the way Democrats operate. You see a Trump supporter, immediately go and insult them. Then the response from that gentleman was a sarcastic, almost satirical response, like kind of trying to troll the Democrat. it doesn't matter. Trump removed it, and they say, well, we know why he retweeted it. Well, let me ask you a question. Democrats who feel that this was all planned by Trump, if you say we know why he did it, well, why did he sign the First Step Act? Why did he sign legislation regarding prison reform? Why did he sign legislation regarding $225 million in funding for historically black colleges and universities? Why did he sign an executive order combating anti-Semitism on college campuses? Why did he move the embassy to Jerusalem? So, and then, so you tell me, how do the insults correlate with that, with those accomplishments? Those things I consider accomplishments. To the left, people on the left maybe don't think they're accomplishments. Who knows? The left in the United States of America is run purely by emotion, only emotion. They're the most fanatical, apoplectic, hysterical political ideologues you've ever seen in your life. It's almost the same. It's the same zealotry as a religious fanatic, but their divine inspiration is cyberspace, social media, and being able to judge and condemn anyone who doesn't agree with them. I'm talking about also Bernie Sanders supporters. Also, Doug, do we talk enough about how legit the numbers are? Are you referring, Doug, to Are you referring, Doug, to the poll numbers? President Trump's poll numbers, or because the poll numbers are Republican voters against Trump. I mean, the whole thing, the Democrats, the Republicans, any Republicans against Trump are basically establishment Democrats. So I'm not a Republican or Democrat, but the numbers are nonsense. They ask more Democrats, around 5 to 10% more Democrats. So that's already skewed. Then they added to what do you think of President Trump's response to the pandemic or protest? They don't ask, well, what do you think of the governor of New York's response on March 1st when he said the risk remains low for the people of New York. Then it became the epicenter. New York became the epicenter of the entire country. So, my thing, ladies and gentlemen, is the following. You look at each state that President Trump barely won. If you remove Gary Johnson, and here's the big issue, if you remove Gary Johnson, you then have President Trump winning that state. Then they're blaming, it's funny, it's sad and pathetic and insidious. They're blaming President Trump for lives lost in COVID. If you go to the New York Times right now, the numbers, I think the numbers are legit. Doug, I don't think the numbers are off. We might look back and say some of the numbers were off because the regular flu was counted, but I won't comment on the numbers. 80,000 lost their lives because of the flu in 2018. So you look, we have a greater percent of the population that's older now. Older Americans, percentage of the population over 60 years old in the United States of America has increased. So we have like 4 to 5 million more people over 60 years old. I was actually... So... if you look at If you look at the number of older Americans that we have, the figure is greater now than it was, obviously, during President Obama's administration. So, we had 700, okay, so here, we had 710,000 people hospitalized. This is according to the New York Times from the 2014-2015 flu season. So again, we don't have, I don't believe we have 710,000 people hospitalized. 34 million Americans got the flu. This is according to the New York Times. But see, they're not going, nobody is going to, nobody's going to look at anything in perspective. It's always going to be sensationalized, always Trump's fault. You'll never look at the governor of New York or New Jersey. You'll never look at any, Jimbo, MSM not asking likely voters only registered. Exactly. And also not asking, there's no way for them to really predict. Actually, Michigan had a guns counted. Google. Huh. I didn't know that. Doug, thank you. I did not know that. Jimbo, exactly. They're not looking at this from any rational perspective. But see, here's why President Trump's going to win again. The reason people are going to vote on their based on economic motivations. They're going to vote based on their pocketbook, based on their checkbook, based on the money in their wallet. They're not going to vote on President Trump's tweets. This is giving Democrats yet another false sense of security. They already called him, look, Trump was already racist in 2016. He was already a Russian operative. He was already unfit to be president in 2015 and 2016. They haven't changed, but they're ignoring the fact that Gary Johnson isn't there. I think that's a huge blind spot politically when it comes to forecasting the election. And looking at swing states, he might win Minnesota. He might win Nevada. He was close in Minnesota. He's close in Nevada. And he's somewhat close within the polls today. If he wins Minnesota, he can lose. If he wins Minnesota, all he has to do is win Ohio. I think Ohio and Florida, you can look at favorability ratings. He's doing fairly well. He's either above water or barely negative in terms of favorability. The polls showing Biden up are public relations spin. Nobody in their right mind looks at Biden. Nobody in their right mind looks at this man and says, wow, he's inspiring. Wow, I'm voting for him because of X, Y, or Z. Nobody can even name why they're voting for him. They can't. But not being Trump is not a platform. Being Trump is a platform. I'm voting for President Trump because he's the only person who could reverse U.S. foreign policy and bring home Americans. I'm voting for President Trump because he's the only person who addresses the trade imbalance with China. I'm voting for President Trump because he signed the First Step Act, because he is addressing anti-Semitism that's running rampant on college campuses. So you look and it's like you have a situation where how many, if Trump is speaking to racists by retweets, well, who is he speaking to when he signs the First Step Act or signs an executive order combating anti-Semitism, or signs a bill restoring funding to historically black colleges and universities? Who is he speaking to? Where's the subliminal there? So that's completely disregarded. But he retweets something, then obviously didn't really pay attention to the tweet or whatever, and then deletes it. But that's not enough, because the retweet, don't you understand, to Democrats, this is how racist they are. The retweet is worth more than President Trump signing a bill to fund hundreds of millions of dollars to HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. The retweet is worth more than that. Then the rebuttal is, well, so what? Democrats pushed for it, and Democrats, or it was going to happen anyway. But he signed it. So how is that a rebuttal? We had record low black and Latino unemployment. Well, it started under President Obama. Well, how is that a rebuttal? How is that a rebuttal? The fact that it took place under President Trump proves that he's not this horrible monster and this bigoted, prejudiced, horrible human being. Which one is it? Like, great things take place for people of all backgrounds, and it's like, oh, well, so what? Well, so what? You look at older Americans, the population between 2006 and 2016, the population age 60 and over increased from 36% to 50 million, from 50 million to 68 million Americans. Okay, and it's still from 2016 to 2020, it's probably increased at least 5 to 6 million Americans, at least. So that's why you have the increase in lives lost. And most of the lives lost are in 5 Democratic-run states. So, I mean, people don't blame Trump. They don't blame Trump. You know, they don't blame Trump for, they don't blame President Trump for what's taking place. Whether it's the unrest or the pandemic, there's nothing that he did. Like Bush, he used faulty intelligence, and it was an intelligence failure that his foreign policy was predicated upon. Clinton voted for that. Okay, Libya and President Obama's failed NATO intervention, you can attribute the horrendous atrocities taking place to the failed NATO intervention that President Obama and Biden and Clinton pushed for. President Trump did not do anything to cause lives lost. The rebuttal there is, well, you know what, he could have done a lot more. Anything he would have done would have been ignored, or they would have done the opposite. Anything he says, they say this is not true. So the notion, this is the hilarious and sad and pathetic game they play. They say, well, the federal government should have done more. When Trump opens his mouth, they say, oh my God, here he goes again. We don't believe him. And the state governments, they're the ones who, they're the closest, mayors and governors have the most responsibility to react to pandemics, or like they have the greatest authority in terms of politics to react or to address pandemics, not the president. So you have 4 or 5 mayors presiding over half of the lives lost, and you have a population that's a lot older. So, but again, you can't expect Democrats to realize they're going to lose. They're going to lose because they retweet arguments with like 10 or 12 older Americans in their 70s or early 80s or whatever, yelling at the top of their lungs, and which is a microcosm of the same thing that happens with 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds on Twitter. And then you have just the anger, like the Democrats on there were just the angriest, obscenities and and foul language and oh my God. And then the rebuttal from one of the people was, oh, well, look at your president. It's like, well, he doesn't use obscenities. Like one thing Trump doesn't do is he doesn't really use obscenity, maybe once or twice, but not really. And like, if they can't handle it now, do you know what November 3rd is not going to be fun. They don't have Gary Johnson. They don't have, they're not outspending Trump 2-1. Okay, they outspent Trump 2-1, and they still lost. So what do you expect? Then there's $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion. Cohen Walsh, if you can email me that information if you'd like, maybe the New York Times article on contactgoodman78@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of a newsletter, upcoming newsletter, please go ahead and email me. But yeah, that information would be interesting. I haven't seen that, but from the New York Times, Cohen Walsh, if you have that information. But they're not going to win. Again, they're going to lose. They are going to lose. They are going to lose. And they're going to lose because they're disingenuous. And if you look, today's politics is condemnation and judgment with the fervor of a religious fanatic, without any semblance of, spirituality or, you had like televangelists, in the 80s, and you have, religious leaders that throughout the years overstep their boundaries and, claim to be the voice of God or whatever, of all different faiths. I don't even listen to those people. I don't think you shouldn't. I don't think anyone should. But I guess they're the same type of people as the judgmental, arrogant, self-righteous, always indignant, left-leaning pundits or left-leaning voices. Like, what did they achieve in life to be able to judge and condemn and mock anyone who disagrees with them? And it's never like Geraldo Rivera used to have, like, this in the 80s. There was this show. You had like all of like the Klan or whatever, like, horrible group. Like, you could see, okay, those people are, racist and bad people. Those people are horrible. And there used to be a dividing line. Like those people were never compared to Republicans or Democrats. But now Democrats have no sense of logic, like zero critical thinking skills. And anyone voting for Trump is the same as those people throwing chairs and, in the melee in the 1980s Geraldo show. There's no difference. Jimbo! Creflo Dollar. I don't know. What does that mean? Jimbo! Jimbo! Oh, okay. Gotcha. But, it's like, you look at the way politics is today, nobody can actually name what they're voting for. Thank you, Jimbo. Thank you. Nobody can actually name a policy that Biden stands for. Name one. Bernie is voting. This is how, like, this is where Bernie Sanders is at. He's pushing for Biden, who won't be the nominee. It'll be Hillary Clinton. But he's pushing for Biden, who would veto Medicare for all, and who would definitely not bring home Americans from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts because he helped place them there. So this is where the Democratic Party is at. Oh, now they're going after Van Jones. Oh, my God. It's just unbelievable. It's just the left is, what they do is they purge anyone. They purge anyone who leaves that cult. It's pretty unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. They're not going to win in 2020 because they don't stand for anything. Valerie Rogers, so sorry to all the seniors who missed prom. Yes, that's true. That's true. That's true. I actually read that wrong, Valerie, and my eyesight, I thought that was a different word towards the end. Yes, and he would approve, exactly, John Carpenter, he would approve the TPP. Exactly. Cameras are awesome. Exactly. I did. I got out of a great time. But you look right now, and President Trump, he can win Minnesota. He can win Nevada. Let's say they take, they have to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I don't know if they could win all three. But they desperately have to win Ohio and Florida, and I don't think they have Ohio or Florida. I think Ohio and Florida is going to President Trump. I don't think that people are going to vote. People are going to vote on the economy. President Trump, in every poll, if you look within the polls, in every poll, he is seen as the president, the best president for the economy. And by the way, I have a segment up on H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. It's my first segment in a couple of days. Please go ahead and share it. It's me kind of talking about what's like today's, very bizarre news from today. But please go ahead and share it. Here's the actual view. Kurt Leonard! Trump may win on First and Second Amendment issues alone. Exactly. Exactly. You know what? I actually might do a Bizarro World Goodman on what happened today. Should I do a Bizarro World Goodman on what happened today? Let me know, everybody. But, President Trump, like, they have yet, I guess this is my long-winded point, they've yet to explain how many people, so Trump so there's a whole lot of people that'll vote based on a retweet of some old person yelling like a very absurd, like horrible phrase. So how many people in which swing states? I want to know. So I want to know which swing states have these people? What cities have the most, people who will vote based on Trump's retweets? I'd like to know this. Because if you go and say, well, he retweeted, this is like they never use basic logic. Like basic logic, you can't find people who have you can't find people who are so who have such an inability, who lack the ability to just utilize basic logic, which is why they're going to lose. They keep saying that Trump sends these subliminals. Well, to who? To whom? Where are these people located? Where do they live? Do they live in swing states? Because guess what? You're not going to be able to abolish the Electoral College, Democrats. It ain't happening. So where do these people live? I want to know. Because Democrats think all Republicans are horrible racists, so there you go. They live in all red states. So which swing states? Where? Michigan? So if you lose Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Iowa? Where do these people live? Where do all the horrible, bigoted people live that Trump is speaking subliminally to? And when you lose again, because Democrats are going to lose, who are you going to blame? This contingent, this silent, massive contingent of horrible, bigoted people that just came out of the woodwork because of Trump's retweets. And then he knew what he was doing. Did he know what he was doing with prison reform? Did he know what he was doing with signing a bill of $225 million? I think it should be $1 billion for historically black colleges and universities. Did he know? Did he know what he was doing? Signing, combating anti-Semitism in an executive order. You can't find more disingenuous people with a lack of basic knowledge and a lack of history. With a lack of history, President Trump is a strong ally to the only Jewish state on the planet, and yet Democrats call every Trump supporter and President Trump a word I can't even use on YouTube. Think about that for a second, based on history and based on the murderous past of the word that he uses. The word that the Democrats use. Think about how absurd that is. And it's Democrats who want to boycott. And share my Jerusalem Post op-ed. Why Democrats embrace anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias. But again, you can't, no basic, there's no basic logic. They say things that are outlandish and they truly believe it. Jimbo! Trump must speak. Trump must be speaking subliminally to Australians. Jimbo, thank you. Jimbo, thank you. Thank you, Jimbo. Thank you. Jimbo. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was it's going to be somewhat short, but thank you so very much for tuning in. I'm going to do a whole bunch of these segments. I called 2016, even though, people on the left don't give me credit for it, but who cares? I don't really care. But I called 2016. NPR quoted me. And I'm calling 2020, and I'm telling you, I don't see how Democrats could possibly win. The only chance they have is with Hillary Clinton, and only if Trump falls for another one of their traps. Today was a trap. And he can't do that. Exactly. La Contra 23, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless. Thank you, Jimbo. To my super chat, thank you. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I have a great segment up right now on there. That's below in the pinned comment. People, I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow, everyone. Listen, November 3rd, tell all your friends, tell your family, tell everybody you know to be on this channel, H.A. Goodman, and H.A. Goodman's other channel on November 3rd. And I might have a Bizarro World Goodman still up and running. Who knows? I might go back to it. I don't know. Give me your thoughts